Good morning, I trust you're well. Welcome to this Sunday premier political show, Inside Politics. I am George Maringa and we are glad that you've joined us. As always, we dissect the biggest political and governance issues that have happened in the last week. It is just 171 days to the August 9th polls, and political parties are holding their national delegates conferences that appear to have taken a different form. Jubilee Party is set to hold its NDC this week, that is on 25th and 26th February. But ahead of that NDC would have been the hyped Sagana State House 3 meeting in Nyeri County that was set to be chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta from tomorrow. That meeting, which seems to have been deferred, was already causing political jitters within Mount Kenya region. Meanwhile, all eyes are on IEBC as the Commission has its work cut out. With a high-stakes election in the way this year, will IEBC redeem itself? My panelists are already here in studio to discuss these and other political intrigues. Dismas Mukua, a political risk analyst, Dennis Ndumbi, a political analyst, and also Mark Bichachi, a communication strategist, as well as Ishmael Nyaribo, a lawyer who will be joining us a little bit later on. Join the conversation online at KTN News KE and at George Maringa _ use the hashtag InsidePolitics. We begin with a story here, and that sets the stage for our discussion this morning. And the planned Sagana State House 3 meeting in Nyeri County, set to be chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta starting Monday this week, has already started causing political jitters within Mount Kenya region. Politicians from the region who do not prescribe to the Azimio la Umoja movement have already dismissed the meeting, arguing that it will not have any political impact in the region, given that President Uhuru Kenyatta was leaving office in a few months. The two-day meeting was expected to come up with a declaration on the political direction the region will take ahead of the August 9 polls. And as our senior political affairs reporter Chris Tairo tells us, President Uhuru Kenyatta has already openly expressed his support for ODM party leader Raila Odinga as his preferred successor.
Sasa kipindi ya siasa imekuja na mtatusikia.
And true to his words, President Uhuru Kenyatta is on Monday and Tuesday next week expected to chair a meeting bringing together elected and aspiring leaders, professionals and businessmen from Mount Kenya region, dubbed Sagana 3, 5.5 months to the general polls. According to the organizers of the meeting, the president is expected to explain to the leaders reasons as to why he decided to ditch his deputy William Ruto for ODM party leader Raila Odinga. The president has openly campaigned against his deputy.
Kama ni mimi sasa siwezi kuendelea, lakini niko na uwezo wa kusema mimi naona fulani yako na uwezo wa kuendelea pahali ambapo mimi nimefikisha.
But even as the Sagana 3 meeting is being organized, there are already political undertones, especially from politicians who do not support the Azimio la Umoja movement that is fronting ODM leader Raila Odinga as its presidential flag bearer.
Na wale wameitwa mikutano hapa na pale, wafanye mikutano kwa utulivu. Kenya itakuweko, nyinyi ndiye mtaenda, mtaacha Kenya, viongozi wataenda, wengine watazaliwa na mtakumbukwa kwa matendo yenu.
Ukuje peke yako, siko namna hiyo, utupigie kwa heri, ndio ukienda nyumbani tukubariki, lakini usijaribu kutuhusia kitendawili.
Despite President Kenyatta retiring from office in the next 6 months, it still remains unclear whether he will still retire from active politics, given that up to now there is no apparent successor as the Mount Kenya political kingpin.
Tunataka uchaguzi ukuje, tumalizane nao, turudi kazini ile wananchi wanataka itendwe, si ndio?
In 2012, President Uhuru Kenyatta was installed as the region's political kingpin as he was gearing up to vie for the presidency in 2013 together with his deputy William Ruto, and since then he remains the de facto leader.
Mtu yeyote ambaye anapenda Wakikuyu afuate Uhuru. Uhuru wa Kenyatta ndiye atakuwa kiongozi ya Wakikuyu.
Hii ni marathon. Ukiona mtu akisema mimi sina project ya mtu mimi, lakini nitaangalia hata mimi kura yangu si nitaweka pahali ya mtu mimi nitaamini. Na kama kuna mtu mmoja ama wawili watanisikiza, si nitawaambia mimi oni langu ni hivi. Si ni namna hiyo? Ngoja, mosmos, waja.
Hawa watu ya mlima walikupigia kura, hawaja kula kitu yako. Ukija uwaletee kila mtu 10,000 wa kule, kwa sababu ya ile kura walikupigi. Lakini hata ukipeana 10,000, hakuna mtu utapigia kitendawili kura.
I've already decided that we are going to push an agenda for the community, an agenda for this country, not an agenda of that other person. They are personalized. We are not going to push on how much we can be able to pull somebody down, but we shall support ideas that can be able to make Kenya a great country.
The last Sagana meeting that the president chaired was last year when he was rallying the community to support the Building Bridges initiative. All the county assemblies in the Mount Kenya region approved the BBI draft bill, only for it to be halted by the courts. The Sagana 3 meeting will be held only a few days after Deputy President William Ruto's tour of the region since Wednesday this week, and expected to culminate on Friday in Kiambu County. Chris Dairo, KTN News, Nairobi.
Thank you, Dairo, for that story, which sets the stage for the discussion this morning. All my guests are already here in studio, starting with Ishmael Nyaribo, a lawyer on my immediate left, as well as Dismas Mukua, a political risk analyst. They are here with me in the glass studio. And joining us from the Summit studio will be Mark Bichachi, a communication strategist, as well as Dennis Nthumbi, a political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making time for us here on Inside Politics. And I begin with you, Ishmael. From where you sit, is this Sagana 3 meeting deferred officially? Is it being said to be deferred? What could be the intrigues behind all this?
Well, I think the truth is Mount Kenya has always been one. And when you call for a meeting, you know, you've got to be sure that everybody who matters in Mount Kenya is probably ascribing to the, you know, issues you are trying to bring up at the meeting, or that at least, even if there are those who oppose it, they should be a minority. It probably means that the Sagana meeting has not garnered the exact majority they need. So they have to, you know, look around and figure out, do we call it on, do we call it off, do we insist we have it, or we wait for our other brothers to agree with us? So I think those are the real intrigues going on. But in terms of whether it should be done, at the end of the day, it will be done. And you know very well, irrespective of all the bickering and noise, Uhuru Kenyatta is actually the Mount Kenya kingpin, whichever way you look at it. And all elders in Mount Kenya region, you've seen Michuki, former minister, the late, you know, saying, if you really want it to be recognized in Kikuyu land, ebu fuata Uhuru Kenyatta. So this is how it is. But I think in terms of when they will hold it, that really depends on the Jubilee Party and the head of state. But I am sure they want to make sure that everybody who matters is on board.
There have been political intrigues, those aligned to, as you've heard in the story, to the UDA party saying that they will not attend, and whereas there have been talks that there will those who will be defecting from Jubilee, from UDA back to Jubilee. Is that a prospect that perhaps you foresee coming?
You see, technically or legally speaking, a lot of UDA people are actually Jubilee party people. But again, on that technicality alone, once you have joined another party, you cease to be a member of that Jubilee party. So whatever the bickering from the Tanga side, I think the truth is that they will not be participating to make any change in Jubilee operations during the Sagana meeting. Yes.
Of course. Now, there's so much at stake in this meeting, the Sagana 3, and last time you did see the outcomes. Will this be a continued onslaught on DP Ruto and his allies?
Well, I choose to look at your question from 2 levels. Number one, we've been told that President Kenyatta is going to explain to his base, the Mount Kenya base, where the rain started beating him with his deputy William Samoei Ruto. And in my view, President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Samoei Ruto were elected by all Kenyans. Their voters are not limited to Mount Kenya. So in my view, President Kenyatta owes all Kenyans an explanation. We need to know where the rain started beating those 2 powerful gentlemen, and we need the reasons to be very crystal clear. We want to know whether it was a personal interest, whether it was business interest, whether it was a policy interest. You remember for the longest time, the president had said, kumi yangu na kumi ya Ruto. So there were some subtle promises, there were legitimate expectations, and there was a psychological contract between the deputy president and his boss. So Kenyans have got that valid expectation that we need to understand what really happened so that people have got the capacity to take a decision. Now the second level is that the Sagana meeting, for all intents and purposes, is a special purpose vehicle for Jubilee. Now, Jubilee Political Party and the parliamentary group have indicated in black and white that under the Azimio partnership, they want to have a majority in the National Assembly, they want to have a majority in the Senate, they want to have a majority in the Council of Governors, and at least 30 county assemblies. So essentially what the president wants to do is to use the Sagana 3 meeting, if it takes place, to reassert the authority of Jubilee and ensure that most of the elected leaders from Mount Kenya, in fact, belong to Jubilee. That is the bottom line. And if the meeting, in fact, has been deferred or has been rescheduled, then what he's doing is doing a stakeholder mapping to ensure that all stakeholders from Mount Kenya are aligned. For instance, Mwangi Kijuri, who is said to enjoy a bit of support from Laikipia, has said that, wait a minute, I'll come for this meeting if and only if the invitation comes from the president. So it seems that the invitations were being done by persons that Mwangi Kijuri has no regard for. And when you're holding this Sagana 3, you don't want to hold this meeting and then Mwangi Kijuri and Gachagua and Martha Karua having a similar meeting down the road. Because what the president wants to communicate to Kenyans, that he's got the Mount Kenya votes under his strong grip, and his word is as good as law. But his word will not be good as law if the other party leaders are having meetings, parallel meetings. But in my view, what the president ought to do, the explanation must not be limited to Mount Kenya. The explanation is meant for all Kenyans, because the moment a president who is a symbol of national unity, who that every Kenyans look upon, if he goes back to Mount Kenya and it seems that he's only loyal to the Mount Kenya voter, then Mura and Nafula and Wakesha will begin to wonder that I voted for President Kenyatta, he owes me an explanation, but he has ignored me, he's gone to Mount Kenya.
Bichachi, do you agree?
Well, the fact is that all politics is local, and as far as Jubilee is concerned, the basis of their launching of their elections, both in 2013 and 2017, have been from a local perspective. Let's not pretend here that William Ruto does not have a base in the Kalenjin Rift, and Uhuru Kenyatta has a base in Central Kenya. So that being the fact, he has to start from Central. But I also agree with the Dismas that the Azimio campaign and Jubilee as a party is under serious threat of being seen as a very central Kenya organization, simply because of the amount of efforts, justifiably so, that have been put behind getting Mount Kenya to support Azimio. So it is a bit of a balancing act that they need to do, because make no mistake, the likes of Rigathi and Ndindi Nyoro and the rest have actually made inroads for UDA within Mount Kenya. So how do you turn that around and also make sure that you carry the rest of the country along? But allow me to correct a very serious misnomer. In fact, it's a travesty to our country and the intellect of the people of this country when you hear Rigathi say a very unfortunate statement saying that the president must come and give everybody 10,000 shillings to show that he's been a serious president. I think that is propagation of very toxic politics. It is propagation of very wrong politics, and that, my friend, is not the model we want to copy for anyone. I want to tell my friend Rigathi straight to his face, that is wrong mentality. It is bad leadership. In fact, you should be ashamed that you can tell that to a public audience, that they should receive 10,000 shillings simply because someone became president to serve the entire nation. And as Uhuru Kenyatta served the mountain, how many roads are in the mountain? How many level 5 hospitals have been built across the country? So let's not put leadership down to money. And I've seen leaders say this before. Once upon a time, a gubernatorial candidate was told to go back because he cannot contribute less than 100,000 shillings. That is a shame. Now, moving forward, what does Sagana 3 hold for the mountain? Number one, we need to understand that for the longest time, especially since Kibaki took power in 2002, Mount Kenya has voted in one basket. Now, this is the first time where they do not have a candidate on the ballot, but they have interest. Just the same way as the Dorobo, the Giriama, the Bukusu, the Batura, whoever have interests in the next election. The question that must be answered is who will carry and further the interests of the mountain into the next 5 and possibly 10 years. That question about in whose hands are you safe is a serious question. In fact, let me put it like this. You know, a promise is only as good as the promiser. And the people of the mountain have to ask themselves, Raila's track record, has it delivered the promises he made? And William Ruto's track record, has he delivered on the promises that he has made in the past? It is a matter of character that is going to be put to the test. Now, if you have... Yes.
Let me bring in Tumbi at this point, because some 32 months later, it appears that the chicken... Moko, I'll come to you, but let me bring in Tumbi, because is it that we expect the chickens to come home to roost? Because this has been touted as a very huge political event that the president will have a huge political statement. Shall we see even people defecting from UDA? Ntumbi, what are you seeing from this Sagana 3 meeting?
Thank you very much. Greetings to viewers. I think allow me to speak as somebody who's from the mountain, and not to speak from a context of hearsay or just to throw words around, to sound like we have a grip on the matter. Sagana 1 and Sagana 2 have never had any developmental or political tangent in the mountain. When you look at the list of those who have been invited in Sagana 1 and Sagana 2, they have been consistently the same people. But when they leave Sagana, they don't discuss anything whatsoever to the populace. There's nothing that has been affected out of Sagana. There hasn't been any developmental traction that has ever come out of Sagana 1 and Sagana 2. Sagana 3 is an interesting perspective because almost a huge segment of the ones who have consistently been invited in Sagana 1 and Sagana 2 have been party to the MCAs who are, Jubilee, and we have some functionaries that were from Jubilee, but majority of them then have crossed over to the UDA. So there's a concern about quorum that then they have to struggle with. Now, that said, that we have identified that Sagana 1 and Sagana 2 have never had any political developmental tangent in Mount Kenya, then we need to collapse it to Sagana 1 and Sagana 2 and Sagana 3 have been purely a meeting to consolidate the interest of the president, not the interest of the mountains. I believe that what he wants to do is collate and empower back his political capital, especially because he's retiring. And when you look at the architecture within the political landscape, you realize that there's some interesting things that are happening. You realize that there are conversations of BBI being resurrected by the court, and I don't want to discuss that because it may be sub judice. There is a conversation of the coalitions bill again. There are conversations that the president may have a disposition like as if he will lose the elections, that the president may not want to retire. So the mountain is the only political capital that he will have to negotiate for some post-election packs for him to be able to have a resurgence back into government, perhaps as a prime minister thereabout. So what we see as people of the mountain, and that's the reason why we are asking him, come back home and say goodbye, because we want to believe that you're going back. Mother Karua has mentioned it. Moses Kuria has discussed it. Honorable Rigathi has discussed it. Every politician from the mountain that has some capital is then punching at the point of, are you retiring or not? Because there has been conversations that the president has started to succeed, and also the conversation of him managing succession. So he needs to ensure that the mountain is a political capital that can be his peculiar bargain for a post-election pact that, of course, will be succeeded by the coalitions aspect that was passed in Parliament. However, this has nothing to do with national politics, even though it's being discussed in a lodge that is national. At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with the mountain. These are the specifics, personal interest of President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta in his retirement, quote unquote, and perhaps a resurgence in the post-election politics thereabout. So purely that's the way we look at it, and we need to discuss whether there's some type of an entitlement within the constitution or thereabout. But I think it's a dangerous precedence that is being set. But people from the mountain, they are waiting to see the disposition of the president.
Mariga.
Yeah, yes.
Let me just be very clear, because we cannot be arrogant in our ignorance. Number one, the BBI bill is very clear on who can be prime minister. It must be someone who's run for MP and then is nominated by the sitting president. So this conspiracy theorizing, the same way they believe 5G causes COVID, is nonsensical. Because unless Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is going to go back to Gatundu South and run for MP, there is no way on this earth or in various other universes where he can run for any seat, be it prime minister or president. Secondly, he has stated himself that he has stated many times that he doesn't even want to be in office. But it is a narrative that favors UDA because they're scared of him. Number two, we cannot fault any leader in the desire to have a political party continue beyond the sitting presidency. PNU continues, DP continues, KANU continues. Jubilee should be given a chance to continue, because we've said time above number on this show that we need to stop having parties that are briefcase parties, individual parties, and special purpose parties. I say kudos to Jubilee for wanting to continue beyond this particular term, because we need continuity in politics.
The gentleman here wanted to react, and I'll start with, okay, fine, you can start it and then go to Mukua.
You see, I think we should not hype any emotions. And when we come to the show, we must appreciate certain positions, certain values which are not disputed by anybody. For example, the head of state has clarified that when I call people, when I'm retiring, I will simply show the country that maybe I have two friends. He said it, you've seen on a clip. I mean, if I have two friends, I will say, okay, the person I feel should help us move the country forward is XYZ. Now, that should not make anybody bitter or emotional or feel, you know, even if the president has dissed the deputy president, I think it should annoy nobody. Because when they were together so much, there was a section of the country that was feeling like they are really being taken for a ride. What do you mean when you say kumi yangu, kumi yako? Have you ever understood the illegality of this statement? You say kumi yangu, kumi yako. So when is anybody coming to contest for presidency and win if already 20 years are locked to two gentlemen? So the president coming out to reject and diss what he already promised the deputy president should not annoy any reasonable minds, actually. It is the way it should be. I mean, we also have to call out on these, politicians who are saying, don't worry, if you lose in the primaries, don't worry, we will create some jobs for you. When are we going to apply for a job and we be given by merit? If you are saying that in our side, if you win, we give you, if you lose, sorry, we give you a post. So we must take those statements in context of campaigning. But once you are done with the campaigns, please, you must fight for yourself. And that's why I think the head of state has done a magical good thing to say, apana, that kumi yangu, kumi yako, it was a campaign strategy, and we are done with that. So I don't think anybody really needs to be so emotional that Uhuru will sit in Sagana and probably invite 50 people, even if you say 10, and tell them something. Nobody should be emotional.
Well, Mukwe, you've been yearning to have a rejoinder.
Yes, you know, every single Kenyan whether or not you voted for the Uruto administration, you've got insurable interest in the administration.
Right.
So I'm wondering that after the president has got these Sagana 3, essentially targeting a specific audience, the Mount Kenya audience, is he going to have a Mosocho 1, go to my village and also explain the way I've explained to the people of the mountain what happened? Is he going to have another Kilifi as well and do that explanation? Because, you know, when you look at the presidency and the lawyers here who can offer clarity, the presidency is a symbol of national unity. The moment you get elected into that office, you are supposed to ignore all other tribal alignments and serve the entire nation. So in my view, when you specifically target a particular community that are the only people who are supposed to benefit from an explanation, in my view, that is erroneous. Number two, when Jubilee, the way they have indicated that they want to have a majority everywhere, even if the president does not have that does not run for parliament and become a prime minister, as it has been erroneously suggested, because the president has indicated in black and white that he is no longer interested in an elective seat. But look at this picture. The President Kenyatta is said to nominate Raila as a running mate. And then Jubilee will have the single majority in the National Assembly, Senate, Council of Governors, and county assemblies. So effectively, we will be running the nation. Because the deputy president then, and all the members of the National Assembly, the Senate and everybody else will be responding to President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. So President Kenyatta does not need to be in parliament. He does not need to be at State House, but people who respond to his wishes will be part of the system. And I guess that is the reason why people in UDA are getting nervous. They're asking, Mr. President, are you coming to make a valedictory tour to tell people thanks for giving me 10 years? Or you are coming because you want to create another special purpose vehicle so that we have another 10 years of your administration? And while he was in Mombasa, he said that I've come with amazing projects and we need a continuity. And his continuity is going to be guaranteed by Azimio la Umoja. So the question now is, at Azimio la Umoja, the two main shareholders is going to be President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. So the question we need to ask ourselves till the cows come home, President Kenyatta under the Azimio la Umoja company incorporated, whose interest will he be serving?
Indeed.
Will he be serving his personal interest or our national and public interest? And that's what we must address till the cows home, devoid of toxic politics. And you know, when you talk about toxic politics, people are going to come with alternative facts, fake news, deceit, and lies. And if Kenyans want to make a progress, we must interrogate all these statements. Like, for instance, when the president says about continuity, does it mean that he's the only person who has capacity to continue these projects? Does it mean that if Professor Ejakoya becomes president, he cannot continue with these projects? Or Jimmy Wanjigi, or Musalia Mudavadi, or Ruto? And you know, it goes back to another issue, that when he was coming up with these projects, did they have, was there public participation? Did all the key stakeholders agree that this is how we need to make progress? Because if they agreed that this is how to make progress, nobody is going to stop those projects.
Mokwa, very pertinent questions you raised there, and of course that's the conversation we continue having just after this break right here on Inside Politics with my guest, that is Ishmael Nyaribo, a lawyer, and Dismas Mokwa, political risk analyst, and coming in from our summit studio is Mark Bichachi, a communication strategist, and Dennis Nthumbi, a political analyst. What are your thoughts? Engage us on our social media platforms at KTN News KE, at George Maringa _. Use the hashtag Inside Politics. We'd love to hear from you. We are back in a few minutes.